The morning sun painted golden streaks across the London sky as Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stepped out of their official car at Paddington Station. The famous railway station buzzed with its usual energy, but today felt different. Today was special. The royal couple had come to celebrate the opening of a new children's reading area dedicated to encouraging young minds to fall in love with books and stories. Catherine wore a bright blue coat that matched her sparkling eyes, while William looked smart in his dark navy jacket. Both of them smiled warmly as they walked through the station, greeting the excited crowd that had gathered to see them. Children pressed against the barriers, waving small British flags and holding up homemade signs with messages of love and support. As they made their way toward the new reading corner, something unexpected caught Catherine's attention. Near the information desk stood a familiar figure that made her heart skip with delight. There, wearing his signature blue duffel coat and red hat, was Paddington Bear himself. The beloved character stood perfectly still, his marmalade sandwich held carefully in one paw, while his other paw waved gently at the passing children. The actor inside the Paddington costume had been hired as a surprise for the royal visit, but nobody had told William and Catherine about this special addition to their day. When Catherine spotted the famous bear, her face lit up with genuine joy. She nudged William gently and pointed toward Paddington, whispering something that made the future king chuckle with amusement. Without hesitation, Catherine changed direction and walked straight toward Paddington. The crowd watched in amazement as the elegant princess approached the beloved children's character. Paddington, staying perfectly in character, removed his red hat and gave Catherine the most polite bow that any bear could manage. The gesture was so charming and sincere that it brought smiles to everyone watching. William followed his wife, his own face showing the same delighted surprise that Catherine felt. As they stood before Paddington, the bear reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small jar of marmalade. He offered it to Catherine with both paws, just as the character would do in his famous stories. Catherine accepted the gift gracefully, holding the jar as if it were the most precious present she had ever received. The children in the crowd began to cheer and clap their hands with excitement. Some of them had read every Paddington book, while others knew him from movies and television shows. Seeing their favorite royal couple meeting their favorite bear character felt like magic coming to life right before their eyes. Paddington then turned to William and performed another polite bow. The prince extended his hand for a formal handshake, but Paddington had other ideas. The bear gently pushed William's hand aside and opened his furry arms wide for a proper hug. William laughed out loud and accepted the embrace, creating a moment that photographers would capture and the world would remember for years to come. The station seemed to pause for a moment as this unexpected meeting unfolded. Commuters stopped to watch, pulling out their phones to record the magical scene. Railway workers paused their duties to witness the royal couple sharing such a genuine moment of joy with the fictional character that had brought happiness to millions of children around the world. Catherine knelt down to Paddington's level and began speaking to him as if he were a real friend. She asked about his travels from Peru, mentioned his Aunt Lucy, and even inquired about his favorite type of marmalade. Paddington responded with exaggerated nods and gestures, playing his role perfectly and making Catherine laugh with his antics. A small girl in the crowd called out, asking if she could meet Paddington too. Catherine looked toward the child and then back at the bear, who immediately understood. Together, the three of them walked toward the barriers where the children waited. What happened next would turn a simple royal visit into something truly extraordinary. Paddington began greeting each child individually, offering them imaginary cups of tea and pretending to share his marmalade sandwiches. William and Catherine watched with growing amazement as the bear brought such joy to every young face. The royal couple found themselves caught up in Paddington's world, where politeness mattered above all else, and every problem could be solved with kindness. and a good cup of tea. The reading corner that they had come to open suddenly seemed less important than this spontaneous moment of pure happiness. Catherine whispered to William that this was exactly what children needed, not just books to read, but characters who taught them about being kind, polite, and caring toward others. As more children gathered around, Paddington began telling them about his adventures in London. He spoke about getting lost in the underground, causing chaos in department stores, and always finding help from kind strangers who understood that everyone deserves a chance to belong somewhere. His stories captivated not just the children, but William and Catherine as well, who listened with the same wonder as the youngest members of their audience. The morning continued to unfold in the most delightful way, with Paddington leading an impromptu tea party using imaginary teacups and plates. Catherine pretended to sip from her cup, while William complimented Paddington on his excellent hosting skills. The bear beamed with pride, adjusting his hat and straightening his coat, as any proper gentleman would do. Railway staff began joining the group, drawn by the laughter and joy radiating from the royal gathering. Even the most serious commuters found themselves smiling as they watched the future King and Queen of England having a tea party with a fictional bear in the middle of one of London's busiest train stations. The scene felt like something from a storybook itself, where real life and imagination blended together perfectly. Catherine later said that moments like these reminded her why she loved working with children's charities and supporting literacy programs. Books and stories had the power to bring people together, to create shared experiences that crossed all boundaries of age, class, and background. As photographers captured every precious moment, it became clear that this unexpected encounter would become one of the most beloved images of William and Catherine's royal duties. The pictures would show not just a prince and princess doing their official work, but two people genuinely enjoying themselves and connecting with the magic that good stories could create in the world. The tea party continued to grow as more families arrived at Paddington Station for their morning trains. Word spread quickly through social media that the royal couple was having an amazing time with Paddington Bear, and people began changing their travel plans just to witness this extraordinary scene. The station management had to bring in extra security to handle the growing crowd, but everyone remained peaceful and joyful, caught up in the magic of the moment. Paddington decided to show his royal guests his famous suitcase, the same brown leather case that had traveled with him from Peru. He opened it carefully, revealing an assortment of interesting items that made Catherine gasp with delight. There were several half-eaten marmalade sandwiches wrapped in brown paper, a photograph of Aunt Lucy wearing her spectacles, and a small bottle of Uncle Pastuso's favorite hair tonic. William examined each item with genuine curiosity, asking Paddington detailed questions about his family back in Peru. The bear's eyes grew misty as he spoke about Aunt Lucy's kindness and Uncle Pastuso's wisdom. He explained how they had taught him everything about being polite and helpful, values that had served him well during his adventures in London. Catherine noticed a small, worn teddy bear hidden at the bottom of the suitcase. When she asked about it, Paddington became slightly embarrassed, explaining that even bears sometimes needed comfort during long, lonely nights. This admission touched Catherine's heart, reminding her that behind Paddington's confident exterior lived a young bear who sometimes felt scared and uncertain, just like any child. The conversation turned to Paddington's early days in London, when he first arrived at the station with nothing but his suitcase and a label asking someone to please look after him. William remarked how brave Paddington had been to travel so far from home, trusting that he would find people kind enough to help a stranger in need. Paddington nodded thoughtfully and shared that his biggest fear had been that nobody would want him. He worried that his accent was too strange, his manners too different, or his love of marmalade too peculiar for London society. But the Brown family had welcomed him with open hearts, teaching him that home was not just a place, but the people who chose to love and accept you exactly as you were. This message resonated deeply with Catherine, who had always championed causes related to children's welfare and mental health. She recognized that Paddington's story contained important lessons about belonging, acceptance, and finding your place in the world. These themes were especially relevant for children who felt different or struggled to fit in with their peers. As if sensing Catherine's thoughts, Paddington began sharing some of his most embarrassing London adventures. He told them about the time he tried to take a bath and flooded Mrs. Brown's bathroom, or when he attempted to help with spring cleaning and accidentally painted Mr. Brown instead of the garden fence. Each story ended with the same lesson. Mistakes were opportunities to learn, and the people who truly cared about you would forgive your accidents and help you do better next time. William found himself laughing harder than he had in months as Paddington demonstrated his disastrous attempt at making breakfast. The bear acted out cracking eggs into his hat instead of a bowl, trying to butter bread with a screwdriver, and somehow managing to get marmalade stuck in his fur. The physical comedy was so entertaining that even the serious railway staff found themselves chuckling. A group of school children on a field trip arrived at the station just as Paddington was explaining his philosophy about hard stares. He demonstrated his famous technique for dealing with people who were rude or unkind, scrunching up his face into such a fierce expression that the children burst into giggles. Catherine tried to copy the look, but couldn't manage to appear stern while wearing such an elegant smile. The teacher leading the school group approached carefully, hardly believing that she was witnessing the future monarchs having so much fun with a children's character. She explained that her students had been studying Paddington's stories as part of their reading curriculum, learning about different cultures and the importance of treating newcomers with kindness. Paddington immediately invited the entire class to join their impromptu celebration. He began teaching the children how to make proper marmalade sandwiches, emphasizing the importance of spreading the preserve evenly and cutting the crusts off for special occasions. Catherine and William joined the lesson, with Catherine proving to be an excellent student and William struggling comically with the sandwich assembly. The children taught Paddington some of their favorite playground games in return. They showed him how to play hopscotch, though his large paws made it challenging to land on single squares. They demonstrated clapping games and singing songs, with Paddington attempting to keep rhythm by tapping his paws together. His efforts were endearing rather than successful, but the children cheered for him anyway. William suggested that they all take a group photograph to commemorate this special day. Paddington insisted on proper positioning, making sure the shortest children stood in front and arranging everyone so that their best sides faced the camera. He adjusted his own hat several times and straightened his coat, wanting to look his absolute best for such an important picture. As the photographer prepared to take the shot, Paddington suddenly remembered something crucial. He rummaged through his suitcase again and pulled out a small Union Jack flag that he had been saving for a special occasion. He held it proudly as the camera clicked, capturing a moment that would become one of the most treasured photographs in both royal and children's literature history. The image showed genuine happiness radiating from every face. William and Catherine stood surrounded by excited children, with Paddington at the center holding his flag and beaming with joy. In the background, Paddington Station continued its daily rhythm, but this small corner had been transformed into something magical and timeless. After the photograph, several children asked Paddington about his plans for the rest of the day. The bear explained that he intended to visit the British Museum to learn more about Egyptian mummies, though he was slightly worried about getting lost in such a large building. Catherine immediately offered to provide him with a special map, while William suggested that Paddington might enjoy the museum's collection of ancient marmalade jars. The children giggled at William's joke, but Paddington took the suggestion quite seriously. He pulled out a small notebook and began writing down William's recommendation using a stubby pencil that he kept behind his ear. His careful note-taking impressed the children, who appreciated how seriously he took their advice and suggestions. As the morning progressed, more families continued arriving at the station. Parents who had heard about the royal visit brought their children specifically to meet Paddington, creating an ever-growing circle of admirers around the beloved bear. Each new arrival brought fresh energy and excitement, keeping the celebration alive and vibrant. Catherine found herself marveling at Paddington's ability to make everyone feel special and included. He remembered each child's name after hearing it just once, asked thoughtful questions about their interests, and offered genuine compliments that made their faces glow with pride. His attention was never rushed or distracted. Each person received his complete focus and care. The bear's natural teaching ability also impressed William, who watched Paddington effortlessly educate the children about geography, manners, and problem-solving through his stories and demonstrations. Every interaction contained gentle lessons about kindness, perseverance, and respect for others, delivered in such an entertaining way that learning felt like play. As noon approached, the royal couple realized they needed to continue with their scheduled appointments. But leaving Paddington and the children felt almost impossible, as this spontaneous gathering had become one of the most meaningful events either of them had experienced in their royal duties. The time had come for William and Catherine to bid farewell to their new friend. But Paddington had one final surprise planned for his royal guests. He reached deep into his suitcase and pulled out two small wrapped packages, each tied with a red ribbon that matched his hat perfectly. His paws trembled slightly with excitement as he presented these special gifts to the couple. Catherine opened her package first, gasping with delight when she discovered a tiny jar of homemade marmalade with a handwritten label that read, "For Her Royal Highness, with love from Paddington." The jar was no bigger than her thumb, but it represented hours of careful work and genuine affection. William's package contained a similar jar, along with a small wooden spoon carved with the initials WP for William and Paddington. The thoughtfulness of these gifts moved both royals deeply. Catherine hugged the small jar to her heart, telling Paddington that she would treasure it always and share it with her children when they were old enough to understand the story behind it. William examined his carved spoon with amazement, noting the careful detail and smooth finish that showed how much time Paddington had invested in creating something special. Paddington explained that he had made these gifts himself in the Browns' kitchen, with Mrs. Brown supervising to ensure he didn't create too much chaos. He had practiced making marmalade for weeks, testing different recipes and asking everyone in the household for their honest opinions. The final product represented his very best efforts, made with oranges from his favorite London market and love from his generous heart. The children gathered around to examine the gifts, marveling at Paddington's craftsmanship and thoughtfulness. Several of them asked if they could make marmalade too, inspired by Paddington's example of creating handmade presents for people they cared about. The bear promised to teach them the recipe if their parents approved, emphasizing the importance of adult supervision when working with hot stoves and sharp knives. As the royal couple prepared to leave, Paddington organized an impromptu farewell ceremony. He lined up all the children in 2 rows, creating a pathway for William and Catherine to walk through. Each child held a small British flag or a drawing they had created during the morning's festivities, waving them gently as the couple passed by. Catherine paused to speak with each child individually, thanking them for sharing their morning and asking about their favorite Paddington stories. Her genuine interest in their thoughts and feelings made each child feel important and valued, creating memories they would carry for the rest of their lives. William followed behind, shaking hands with the older children and giving gentle high fives to the younger ones. Paddington walked alongside them, offering last-minute advice about the proper way to eat marmalade and reminding them to always carry a sandwich for emergencies. He also shared his telephone number at the Browns' house, inviting them to call if they ever needed help with difficult situations or just wanted to share good news about their adventures. The station staff had prepared a small reception area where William and Catherine could officially open the new children's reading corner. But the formal ceremony felt different now, infused with the warmth and joy that Paddington had brought to their day. When Catherine cut the ribbon, she dedicated the space not just to literacy and learning, but to the power of imagination and the importance of characters who teach children about kindness and acceptance. William gave a short speech about the value of reading and storytelling in children's development. He mentioned how meeting Paddington had reminded him that the best stories were those that taught important life lessons while entertaining their audiences. He encouraged all the children present to read widely, explore different cultures through books, and remember that every person they met had their own story worth hearing and respecting. Paddington was invited to be the first visitor to use the new reading corner. He selected a book about London landmarks and settled into one of the comfortable chairs, adjusting his spectacles and opening to the first page with great ceremony. The children gathered around him in a circle, listening as he read aloud in his distinctive voice, occasionally adding his own commentary about places he had visited or mishaps he had experienced at various locations. The bear's storytelling proved to be as engaging as his conversation. He brought each page to life with expressive voices, dramatic gestures, and personal anecdotes that made the children laugh and gasp with excitement. Catherine and William found themselves drawn into the story circle, sitting cross-legged on the floor like any other members of Paddington's audience. When the story ended, several children begged Paddington to read another book. He looked thoughtfully at the selection available and chose a tale about a young immigrant who struggled to fit into a new country. As he read, the parallels to his own journey became clear, and he used the story as an opportunity to discuss the challenges and rewards of adapting to new places while staying true to your own identity. The conversation that followed was remarkably mature for such young participants. Children shared their own experiences of moving to new schools, making new friends, or feeling different from their classmates. Paddington listened carefully to each story, offering gentle advice and reassurance that everyone belonged somewhere and that differences should be celebrated rather than hidden. Catherine was particularly moved by one little girl's account of feeling left out because her family spoke a different language at home. Paddington immediately related this to his own experience of learning English expressions and customs, explaining how the Browns had helped him practice without ever making him feel foolish for his mistakes. He encouraged the girl to be proud of her bilingual abilities and to teach her classmates some words from her family's language. As the afternoon progressed, more visitors arrived at the station specifically to see the new reading corner and hopefully catch a glimpse of the royal visitors. Paddington graciously welcomed each newcomer, introducing them to William and Catherine as if they were old friends rather than international celebrities. His natural hospitality made everyone feel comfortable and included in the growing community gathering around the reading space. The bear's impact extended beyond just the children present. Adults found themselves engaged in conversations about their own childhood reading memories, sharing favorite stories, and discussing the books that had shaped their understanding of the world. Parents thanked Paddington for creating such a positive example of how to treat others with respect and kindness, regardless of their background or circumstances. As the royal visit drew to a close, Paddington presented one final surprise. He had prepared a special certificate for William and Catherine, declaring them honorary members of the Paddington Bear Politeness Society. The document, written in his careful handwriting and decorated with small drawings of marmalade jars and sandwiches, officially recognized their commitment to kindness, courtesy, and helping others feel welcome. The ceremony concluding their visit felt more like a celebration among friends than a formal royal engagement. Paddington led the entire group in a rousing rendition of "London Bridge is Falling Down," with everyone contributing verses about their favorite London landmarks. The song echoed through the station, drawing smiles from commuters and creating a moment of pure joy in the midst of the busy transportation hub. When the time finally came for final goodbyes, Paddington insisted on proper farewell etiquette. He shook hands formally with William, curtsied politely to Catherine, and gave gentle hugs to every child present. He reminded everyone to write letters sharing their future adventures, and promised to respond personally to each message he received. As William and Catherine walked toward their waiting car, they turned back multiple times to wave at Paddington and the children. The bear stood proudly in his blue coat and red hat, holding his suitcase in one paw and waving enthusiastically with the other. The image of him surrounded by happy children in the beautiful reading corner would remain one of their most cherished memories of royal service. The day's events had transformed what could have been a routine official engagement into something magical and meaningful. Catherine later told friends that meeting Paddington had reminded her why she loved working with children's organizations and literacy programs. The bear embodied everything she hoped to encourage in young people: curiosity, kindness, resilience, and the belief that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. William reflected on how Paddington's simple philosophy of politeness and helpfulness could serve as a model for public service. The bear's genuine care for others, his willingness to admit mistakes, and his commitment to making amends when things went wrong exemplified the kind of leadership that could make the world a better place for everyone. The photographs and videos from their unexpected encounter with Paddington would be shared around the world, bringing smiles to millions of faces and reminding people of all ages that magic could be found in the most ordinary places when approached with an open heart and a willingness to embrace joy and wonder.